Please be upstanding for the Chair of Stratford District Council, Councillor Jenny Fradgley. Thanks very much.
Okay, welcome to this full council meeting. There are no planned fire alarms scheduled at this time. Therefore, should the fire alarm go off, please make your way out of the building via the nearest fire exit to the car park beside the Windmill Public House. Councillors, when addressing the meeting, please stand and ensure your microphone is switched on and that you speak directly via the live audio feed. When you've finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please do not move the microphone from its set position. And when speaking, ensure the microphone is directly in front of you and not to the side or high up. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. May I ask the Chief Executive if there are any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Eden, Harmer, Hatch, Padgham, Pertigella and Stanley. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Mills?
Yes, Alan Scorer.
And Alan Scorer, thank you.
Sorry. Alan Scorer is another apology. That's fine, is it? Okay. Yeah. Declarations of interest. May I ask the monitoring officer to advise on dispensations?
Thank you, Chair. Is it all right if I remain seated as I refer to the guidance in the Constitution? So regarding dispensation under this heading, the subject of the local government review and devolution has implications for all of us, not just the residents, but also councillors. And given the circumstances, a general dispensation is granted to all.
Do any members or officers have any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Chair. As a county councillor, I'm not sure whether I have to declare an interest or not.
Oh, sorry, monitoring officer.
Thank you. Chair, just to clarify, the dispensation relates to the fact that the local government review by its nature means that the implications for all councillors and also officers and also residents are likely to be affected, so the dispensation covers that.
Any further declarations? Thank you. May we pass on to item 3, variation of council procedure rules. May I ask the monitoring officer to guide us on this?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding item 3, it requires a proposer and a seconder. It's a motion without notice. The reason why it's necessary is because we're having an extraordinary general meeting to discuss an item whereby the Chair has requested that we consider relaxing some of the constitutional rules. And the 3 rules that we need to relax relate to the following. Firstly, a rule that allows members of the public an extended period of time to make representations here today. So that would be Rule 10 within the Council Procedure Rules. Rule 3, which relates to EGMs, which allows representations from the invited speakers and permitted questions and answers from the said invited speakers. and also Rule 15.5 to allow group leaders or their nominated members from the group to make representations and ask a question of each invited speaker who is in attendance. Any other requests, of course, would be at the chair's discretion, but those are the three relevant ones. And the rule that we're referring to is 24.1 within the council procedure rules, and just to clarify that they would only be suspended until the end of this meeting.
Do I have a proposer?
I will propose the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Juned. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I will second it, Chair.
Are we all agreed? Agreed? Thank you. We now move on to item 4, public participation. In accordance with the Council's constitution, questions may only be asked when received by the head of paid service 2 clear days before the day of the meeting. May I ask Mr. Crocker to come to the table at the end of the table setup? No, the table there. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Are you happy with the answer that you've been given?
I
You may
didn't-
ask one question.
I'd had to rephrase it because I had several questions, and to be fair, the basis of the elections has rather changed anyway since I put my question in. So I've got a very brief prepared statement that will last less than a minute.
Thank you. I was just about to say you've got 3 minutes, which will
Sure.
be timed. Thank you.
I'll be briefer than that. So for those, for full disclosure, my name is James Crocker. I'm the Provisional Chair of Reform UK in Stratford-on-Avon. I also stood as the parliamentary candidate in July 24. And at the time, the main issues that we dealt with were around things like the state of our roads, the NHS, immigration, and at no point did devolution crop up at all by any of the candidates that I spoke to, anybody within our local area. At no point did it appear in the Conservatives' manifesto. It was very vaguely mentioned in the Labour manifesto, but at no point did Angela Rayner mention it in any point in her campaigning. Yet as soon as the election was finished, it suddenly seemed to become a matter of priority, and as we came into the autumn, it went up the priority list. And for that reason, a lot of the people I speak to locally were furious that it appeared that they were given no chance to vote when ordinarily they were expecting to on May the 1st. But the will to push this through has been found, yet the will to sort out the derelict British Home Store site, the will to sort out the old cinema where that once stood, there seems to be no will to resolve that, because we still have the issues. But we do have the will to drive through these elections on May the 1st. So fantastic, we really look forward to them. As a result of what's happened, though, the membership in Stratford has shot up precisely because it appeared that there was a will to try and postpone them. And so for that reason, just if you are interested in any way, certainly in the 10 seats in and around Stratford-on-Avon, we will be having candidates in every single seat there. And I expect all of Warwickshire for that matter.
Excuse me, Mr. Please, may we have your question
Is,
not a political statement.
Forgive me.
This is a question time. Thank you.
My question is, why is the issue of devolution suddenly a priority when before the general election it certainly was not?
Thank you for your question. I'll call on the leader to answer. Thank you.
It's actually, no, it was not in the manifesto, but it has been a long-standing priority of several previous governments to progressively move to unitary government. It was actually in the Michael Heseltine report in 2012 for almost the same outline as is in this English devolution white paper was exactly at that time. But we had certainly not expected these proposals to come forward at this time. It has taken us by surprise. It's disappointing, therefore, that although the manifesto was clear in relation to their ambitions for devolution, there was not a mention of the consequences for the structure of local government. And also, we have learnt since that there does not appear to be any funding to help us to do that either. But we are where we are, and we have a white paper in front of us.
Thank you. May we now move... are there any other... No, nobody's written, that's fine. OK, item 5 on the agenda, English devolution white paper. Thank you, Mr Crocker. Speakers have been invited in order for the Council to receive representation... Yes, I said that. On the potential impact of the English devolution white paper on Stratford-upon-Avon. May I ask the Chief Executive to read out 3 statements from people who've actually responded before we actually ask people here who actually are going to read their own statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just to explain to Council, the Council agenda identifies those individuals who have been invited to speak at today's meeting. We are joined today by Councillor Cllr Seccombe, the leader of Warwickshire County Council, Councillor Ian Davidson, the leader of Warwick District Council, and Elizabeth or Eli Ugalus will all be speaking in a short while. Everybody else, unfortunately, cannot make today's meeting, although I do have 3 statements, one from Manuela Pettigella, one from Jeremy Wright, and one from Janine Day, who's the Chief Executive of the Warwickshire Association of Local Councils. So I will read their 3 written statements. I won't be able to take questions in relation to those written statements. I'll just present the statements as received. So firstly, on behalf of Janine Day, thanking the Council for the opportunity to represent Walk at today's meeting. Wanted to understand that Walk are a non-profit membership organisation that represent town and parish councils across Warwickshire and the West Midlands. Walk provide advice, support and training to member councils. Walk is not here to have an opinion on government's decisions. Walk is here to support local councils through the changes ahead. We will be providing briefing sessions and talking to members, as well as engaging with district and county councils. The CEO has already started to engage the leader of the county council, Cllr Seccombe, to look at the opportunities and challenges town and parish councils may face with the local government reorganisation. We would like to reassure all local councils that there will be opportunities ahead if they wish to be involved, and we will be encouraging as many local councils as possible to be involved in talks. We are encouraging local councils to start to talk about what the future may look like at council meetings and to think about putting a forward plan in place for the council. We will soon be writing to the district councils to engage in discussions on assets and the possibility of transfer to some local councils. We would like to extend our offer of support to the district council. We want to assure town and parish councils that this is optional for them. Even smaller local councils may feel that they can be involved with local assets. This important message to get across today is for all councils to engage and have a voice. Local councils have the knowledge of what the local communities need and want, and we would encourage councils to start talking to the community and engaging with them with the council's plan at an early stage. We have already set up a briefing session for our 15 largest councils to attend, which will showcase a large council that has already been involved in asset transfer and be able to discuss the learning from this with our councils. We will be breaking our sessions down into various different sizes of councils, as one size does not fit all. We would also like to engage with parish meetings across Warwickshire and discuss what the future may hold for them, because we have many parish meetings in this area who are keen to look at opportunities. We are very interested to hear from all on this topic and invite you to get in touch, and there's an email address that we can circulate to members of the council. So that was on behalf of Janine Day. The second representation is from the Right Honourable Sir Jeremy Wright MP, and it's addressed to the Chairman of the Council. Dear Jenny, thank you for inviting me to come and speak at Council's meeting to discuss the English Devolution White Paper. I'm afraid that I'm unable to attend. but I take the view that unitary status has advantages financially in terms of better coordination between, for example, planning and economic development, and providing greater clarity and simplicity to the public on which council is responsible for what. I do not think that membership of the West Midlands Combined Authority is... I do, however, think that the membership of the West Midlands Combined Authority is not in my constituents' best interest and should not be required of a new unitary authority. I also believe that it would be undesirable for unitary status to be imposed upon us by central government, and that unreasonably short timescales in agreeing and implementing it will inhibit both proper planning for the change and broadly based public support for it. The final statement is from Manuela Pertigella, Member of Parliament for Stratford-on-Avon. I welcome the Government's decision to proceed with local elections in Warwickshire. Ensuring democratic accountability is vital while discussions on the future structures of local government continue. Let me start by saying that as one of the most local forms of local government, district councils are uniquely placed to support and invest in their communities. As a district councillor myself, I see every day how the work of the district council makes a real difference to residents. The government is, however, pushing forward a reorganisation along unitary lines and has asked for a collaborative proposal to be put forward. I am concerned that the deadlines for presenting this proposal and any different options within it are very tight. Local government reorganisation and devolution should not be rushed, as these changes will have a lasting impact on real people, real families. Equally disappointing is the lack of extra funding to local authorities for this resource-intensive and time-consuming reorganisation process. As these conversations progress, I firmly believe that a South Warwickshire Unitary Council bringing together Stratford-on-Avon and Warwick districts offers the best way forward as one of the options for reorganisation. This model is contained within the boundaries of the South Warwickshire NHS Trust and of the emerging South Warwickshire Local Plan, would ensure local government remains anchored in the communities it serves, providing more responsive decision-making than a large remote unitary ever could, and offering an efficient structure for healthcare and social care. Further, Stratford and Warwick District Councils work already closely together with shared services. A South Warwickshire unitary would also ensure that the distinct economic, cultural and social identity of South Warwickshire is protected rather than being subsumed into a single large county-wide authority. A South Warwickshire Council would also ensure the needs of rural communities are put first. While there are differing views on the best structure and model for local government, I remain committed to working with the district councils, residents, businesses and stakeholders to find a solution that delivers efficient, effective services and ensures that decisions are made as close as possible to the people they ultimately affect. Now is the time to shape a future that works for South Warwickshire, and I will continue to push for a governance model that reflects the needs and aspirations of our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief Executive. We now move on to the next part of the item 5. Speakers have been invited in order for the Council to receive representations on the potential impact of the English Devolution White Paper on Stratford-upon-Avon. May I now invite Councillor Cllr Seccombe to address the Council.
Good afternoon, councillors. It's very good of you to invite me here to be with you, and for those behind, excuse my back, please. May I just check the time allocation?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, thank you so
10
much.
minutes.
I may be quicker, but I'll try and be as quick as I can. I just want to quickly run through the timeline that got us to why we're sitting here today. And I think we all were somewhat surprised by our Christmas present, which was delivered on the 16th of December, and that was the white paper. I think it's quite right that Mr. Crocker did identify the LGR, local government reform, was not identified in manifestos. Devolution certainly was, but it wasn't local government reform. So that part of it was somewhat of a surprise. And there was a necessity to address the white paper with a degree of speed and urgency. And I think I just want to run through those timelines as it was then, because time in local government, a week is a long time, while a month is a very, very long time. So 16th of December, the white paper arrived, and within it, and I'll assume everyone has had the opportunity to read it at least once and pick up the details, but the principles of it we'll return to later. But there was a request that if an area considered itself prepared to go on the priority list, we needed to respond by the 10th of January. So 16th of December, the 19th of December, we had a meeting of all chief execs and leaders of the councils within Warwickshire. So that was the 6 councils. We talked about that, obviously, completely. It was identified that we would, at the County Council, be seeking to go onto the priority list for a number of various reasons, which in many ways are now history, but not least some of it was around securing confidence of staff who will be entering a period of great disruption, and I'm more than conscious of that. And for that, I felt that we needed to define and also steer the wheel ourselves as we move into this time. What I didn't particularly want was a model that would be Westminster delivered to Warwickshire. I think it's really important that Warwickshire tries to shape what Warwickshire needs and wants. So that culminated in a decision on the 10th of January, which you will be aware of, which was the urgent leader decision. We submitted a intention to move on to the priority list, along with many others. So there were, I think, out of the 21 areas, there were 4 areas that did not submit. We all heard last week, this was on the 5th of February, we heard from the Minister, and the Secretary of State made the announcement in Parliament of those that would be taken through. And none of the West or East Midlands will be taken through on the priority list. Largely they are in the south or the east of the country, and they are areas that are going to be shaped around a devolution mayoral model. So that's where we are at the moment. However, the same day, all of us, all of the districts and the boroughs and the county council received the letter from the minister, which was and we knew this was coming, I have to say this was no surprise, which was seeking our intention to move forward with a speed as well on local government reform. And they have required us to come forward with our proposals by the 21st of March, with the intention that fully worked up proposals will be submitted by the 28th, I think it is, 25th or 28th of November. So, and we have, I would say, we have another meeting of the leaders and chief execs of all councils within Warwickshire at the end of this week. So what is important is that we recognise it's not an if, we're in the territory of this will happen, and what we want to do is try to shape what suits our areas together. And I think the main thing is that we are all elected and we all need to start shaping up the model that our residents need. And ultimately, the change is going to happen. And I think we need to consider what are our key priorities. I think the other thing I would just say, in that letter, the proposals were identified as needing to achieve whole area consideration and improvements. We need to right size and create efficiencies, improve capacity, and have a council that will be able to sustain financial shocks in the future. They must prioritise high quality and sustainable services. They must show how we all can work together, which I think is critical. We're all elected by the same people, absolutely. They must support devolution, the longer-term devolution arrangements. And they also must make stronger communities and be engaged with neighbourhoods as well. I think those are all priorities that we would seek. What I would suggest is we also were advised that the numbers still matter. So 500,000 plus population is what they are seeking for as a minimum. Warwickshire is 620,000 population, so I would suggest that that is in the right ballpark. The devolution, which is the next stage, the mayoral models that they talk about, again, a minimum of 1.2 million. So we start to sort of shape it around a model that looks something that we can work with around that. I need to just also identify that every one of our councils, all 6 of our councils, are currently non-constituent members of the combined authority in the West Midlands. And we have been so for many years now. Arguably, I would suggest that different councils are financially in receipt of opportunities and involved in opportunities to bid for money. And that, to me, creates a commitment. I think we need to ensure that that commitment is valued, and if we're making changes on that commitment, we need to understand, can we still be involved in 2 or 1 or more combined authorities? All questions that need to be considered as we move forward. But I'm conscious of time and the number of speakers you've got. I'm posing thoughts that we can all go away and questions that might come to us. But the important thing to remember is there is the capacity to reduce below that 500. However, there has to be exceptional circumstances. Not just because we think it's a better fit, it has to deliver exceptional circumstances. And the shock for resilient services that was talked about, within Warwickshire, we have adult social care, children's social care, special education needs, and home to school transports, which are enormously expensive services, and currently, for the county council, take up somewhere around 70% of our expenditure. They are significant services that if we started to separate our council, would have to look at the capacity to sustain the shock. So I pose those questions to you. Thank you, Chairman, for your time today.
Thank you, Cllr Seccombe. I now invite a representative from all party groups on the council to ask one question of our invited speaker. So if you'd like to just stay there for a moment for a small grilling, if you're happy to take that on board. Thank you. May I ask Councillor Juned to start?
Can I thank you for putting forward your case? Could you, you mentioned the size of local authorities. Can you actually tell us what the average size of the existing unitaries across the country already are and what the range has been up till now?
Thank you. Are you happy to answer that question,
I'm not entirely are we talking about national average? I'll be honest, I don't have...
The national average across the country.
Yeah, I don't have that information.
Okay. Well, the national average, the 29 authorities that already are unitary, they range from 40,000, which is Rutland, up to about 360,000, which is Bristol. There's only 5 local authorities that are actually bigger than that.
I'm allowing just one question, so can we just stick to the one question, please? Councillor Wally Hoggins, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, actually, I don't know the answer to this question that I'm posing to you. I thought you'd like to know that. So, Councillor Seccombe, please could you tell me, how will you be following the white paper briefing, and can you tell this council what meetings you've had regarding devolution? Thank you.
Are you all right if I sit down? Or would you prefer me to stand up, Chairman?
As long as you speak directly
think
into the microphone.
I'm nearer it
Yeah,
at this
exactly.
height.
Happy for you to sit down.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I've given you a bit of a timeline on where we have been. So we've had meetings before Christmas with all the districts, chief execs and leaders. We've got one coming up this week, which is a follow-up, and I think the intention is that we will continue to have, we will determine out of that how many we have, but I think we need to have very many because of the tight turnaround of time. It's always been my intention that if we are looking to shape the future, whatever it will look like, what we need to do is start to create work streams, and different councils can lead or engage with those, and many of those will also be parish town councils as well. What's absolutely important is that the representation that our residents have, either in their parish, town, district, county, or whatever it looks like, needs to be part of how we shape the future. I know my world quite well. I don't know it absolutely, but I know it quite well. But actually some of my, I brought with me today one of my parish chairmen, and I know his eyes and ears in the local area are absolutely vital for me in enabling to try to link our council services to him and vice versa. So everyone has a part to play. What's really important is parishes who feel, what does this mean for them? And we all, arguably, need to be part of actually saying, it's all right, we can deliver a future which means your representation is as good as it's going to be as it is now. And that's down to every one of us who's elected. Every one of us, no matter what colour, persuasion, or political interest we are. We have a role to play in shaping our residents' future. So I think we need to sit round a table and be part of those work streams, and we need to also hear the voice. Now, consultation is questionable in this because the government have made it very clear that they are not going to be asking us to do consultation. It's the minister who will be doing consultation. It doesn't stop me coming to everywhere and anywhere that invites me and talking to people about it. And that's the best I think I can do.
Thank you, Councillor. May I ask Councillor Passingham if he has a question?
No questions for Cllr Seccombe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. I will now move on to invite Councillor Ian Davidson to come and give his statement. Thank you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all of the Council. Also, I'd like to thank Councillor Juned, your leader, and Chief Exec Dave Buckland for many honest conversations, careful consideration of evidence and flexible approach to seeking the best outcomes for our residents. I'm endeavouring to do the same, and we, I believe, need those approaches in these choppy waters ahead. As Councillor Seccombe's alluded to a bit, along with leaders and chief execs in North Warwickshire and Nuneaton and Bedworth, we've been meeting regularly to find the best way forwards, including looking to commission work to fairly assess the pros and cons of a Warwickshire-wide unitary compared with separate North and South unitary authorities. We are, as Councillor Seccombe's mentioned, reaching out to both the County Council and Rugby Borough Council to join us in this approach, and Friday is the first day on that. Many of you may be aware, on the 30th of January, Warwick District Council had a similar debate to your own that's happening today, and we agreed a very similar motion. Bit like she said today, Cllr Seccombe seemed to be proposing Warwickshire to be a freestanding strategic authority while remaining a non-constituent member of the West Midlands Combined Authority. A lot of us were scratching our heads on that. I don't think government will accept that, but they might. It's possible on that. And what it does highlight is the strategic authorities. They've given relatively little guidance on what will happen. They've put criteria, said this is important and that's important. But here, to be frank, they can't all work, and there are huge clashes between the different criteria they've got. One of the, I could say quite a lot about that, but better move on, except all of you know that Warwickshire is a strange shape. There's a big Coventry-sized hole in the middle. And that means that if we are a unitary authority, it would make sense. In fact, it would only make sense in economic geography terms as if Coventry is also in the same strategic authority as us, either within the West Midlands, an expanded West Midlands Combined Authority, or within a different authority. However, there are other options in terms of strategic authorities. It could, for example, South Warwickshire, so Stratford and Warwick, have a lot in common with Oxfordshire. North Warwickshire, plus Nuneaton and Bedworth, have a lot in common with Staffordshire, but the whole of that wouldn't be a sensible economic geography, so would fail on that criterion from the government. You can see where I'm saying there, a lot of the debate today is about which unitary is best, but my view is you can't make that decision without also having a view on which strategic authority or authorities is best. In politics, my aim is always to find the sweet spot between idealism and pragmatism. So although we may not agree with the government's approach on this, our duty is to work together for the benefit of our residents. As I've said already, evidence is important. And there are many different aspects of change on these, not just the politics, which party's likely to win an election. There's also how, if we are getting things together like a local plan, is it coherent, does it fit? The government's been ambitious. They would like, with strategic authorities, the police and health, to be coterminous, have the same there, trying to work that out. Here in Warwickshire, the differences in council taxes is actually quite relevant. So there are many, many bits there that we should take into account. So, as I've said, decisions on strategic authorities and unitaries must be considered together, and I'm looking forward to hearing views from a lot of councillors here today, and also to continue working together, both with Stratford and all the other councils in Warwickshire, to find the best way forwards for our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. May I ask Councillor Juned if she has a question?
Can I thank you and those other district councils who have, both chief executives and leaders, have been able to have a considerable amount of conversations over the last month or so. That has been extremely helpful in being able to understand each other's agendas. Can I just ask, the notice of motion that we're going to debate today is very, very similar indeed to the one that was Warwick District Council passed. I did note that at the Warwick District Council that was supported by all the political groups. Was the outcome again from the end of the debate also fairly unanimous across the District Council between all the political groupings? And also, did you agree on a way forward to make sure that you can work with partners?
May I just remind people putting questions, there is one question to be put. Thank you.
One question with a lot of sub-clauses there, I think. Apologies if I don't get them all. You're quite right. The motion was put by the 5 group leaders jointly. so that was right. We did also amend it at the time because we thought the strategic authority issue was very important. In terms of the vote at the end, four of the groups unanimously voted for it. The Conservatives, it was 50-50. Half of them did and half of them didn't. I think you asked, are we committed to working with parties? We absolutely are. It's important that we work through things as well as we can, even if all of us will have differences of views on what should go on, but we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wally Hoggins, do you have a question?
Thank you. The Lib Dem MP's letter indicates that her preferred option, and I therefore assume already the Lib Dems in control of this council's preferred option, is for a South Warwickshire Unitary Authority. Do you think, therefore, that it is fair or right that the residents of Stratford District will be paying for the huge debt, which is in excess of several hundred millions of pounds, that Warwick District Council is in through its various enterprises? So the question really is, do you think, therefore, that it is fair or right that the residents of Stratford District will be paying for the huge debt, which is in excess of several hundred millions of pounds, that Warwick District Council is in through its various enterprises? Thank you.
Thank you. I would put it that is it fair that the people of Warwick District have to give away their £1 billion worth of assets? And what you're referring to is our debts are in effect mortgages on 5,500 council houses, which equates to about 35,000 per house. So those of you who are homeowners, if you have a mortgage of 35,000 on a property here, are you worried about that debt? We certainly are not. Warwick District is financially very sound. What I do worry about, though, of course, is that the county council, like all other county councils, so I'm not saying anything wrong with how they're running it, have massive problems, and the amount of cuts that they've just passed through their budget is truly eye-watering compared with district councils. So the debt that we're worried about is from the county council, and that's likely to swallow up all the non-statutory services that your council and ours are currently running.
Thank you. May I ask Councillor Passingham if he has a question?
Yes, thank you. My question is, you mentioned Coventry being a big hole in the middle, but nevertheless, we're still in a housing supply area with Coventry. If there was a unitary South Warwickshire, how would you see that relationship? Or is there any other relationship with Coventry that is possible from your discussion so far?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Passingham. I'm not quite sure I understand the question. First of all, I'd like to say well done for Councillor Cllr from Warwick District behind us for attending. That's very impressive. But also, he's furnished me and the rest with economic data. And whichever way you look at it, economically, certainly Warwick District, but also Stratford are intimately connected with Coventry. So if you're looking for economic geography, there makes a huge sense that Coventry and South and North Warwickshire should be in the same strategic authority. That is challenging because the Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority says he doesn't see any reason to change the boundaries there. Now, either we'd have to be in or Coventry would have to be out for that to happen. And this is one of the many bits that I say I don't think the government's criteria can be maintained. So if you're looking at that sort of thing, we have to be together. If we're looking at the same challenges and issues and so on, I can see it would make a lot of sense if we have a strategic authority to be with the likes of Oxfordshire or Worcestershire and so on, because we're quite similar in many ways.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. May I ask now Elizabeth Ugalus if she would like to come and make her statement. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I probably have to sit down because my eyesight at the moment is a bit wonky.
No problem.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of all the local councils in Stratford-on-Avon district. This is a big change for local government, with opportunities and challenges, especially for this district, which is very rural, with a few larger settlements that may have the resources to meet the challenges, but a larger number of smaller parish councils and meetings, which will probably feel, well, scared when looking at the new landscape of local government. Strategic authorities will be more centralised and remote from the electorate, leaving the local connection to local councils, whose councillors are volunteers, and many of which are small with little or no resources to meet this new challenge. Some have already raised concerns about what this will mean: more responsibility and obligations on local councils, volunteer councillors, with no accompanying finance to meet them. Local councils are already finding it difficult to recruit councillors. Increasing their responsibilities will not make this any easier. What we mustn't forget is that principal authorities and local councils represent their local communities to whom they are answerable and whose lives they should strive to improve. Whether this new legislation will do that is really up to us. From what I hear, it is going to become a reality. The only question is when, but no longer if. With this in mind, I strongly believe that good two-way communications between you, the district council, and all the local councils, including parish meetings, within the district is essential. No council should be either too large or too small. They all count. Some will have the resources and become proactive, which will probably make it life easier for you. But the majority are small councils with small precepts, and they need all the support they can get to ensure that, when the day comes, they are ready. One of the scariest things for both you and us is the uncertainty the future has for our sector. What will the change bring? How can we control it so that it becomes the best we can expect? As many of you know, I have always been a strong supporter of partnership, of working together to bring a better outcome, and this is no different. We need to work together to ensure the best future for our sector and for our local communities. To this end, may I suggest SDC nominates an experienced officer or officers who can dedicate their time to being there for local councils, answer their questions, listen to their concerns, help them realise what they can do for their local communities and how this can be done. Reassure them that nothing will be imposed on them, but at the same time, help them to realise what benefits can be obtained if they're open to suggestions. In short, help them to make them the best they can be so they can face the future landscape which it would appear is inevitable. And may I also add that WALC will also be there to support the local councils. In summary, we are all facing new challenges, some good, some bad. We are not all prepared for them, and many need help. Not all local councils have the necessary resources and need support to understand how to deal with the changes and how to ensure that they can get the best out of them. And to achieve this, communication and dialogue are essential to ensure the best for the residents of Stratford-on-Avon district. I hope you concur. And on behalf of Stratford area meeting members, many thanks and good luck to us all.
Thank you, Town Clerk. May I ask Councillor Juned if she has a question for you?
Yes, well, given that the close relationship between the district council and parish councils, do you agree that keeping in touch and being able to have we had the recent inauguration of the parish forum, for example. Do you agree that being able to keep the local in local and being able to keep in good contact with the parish councils and have good consultation with parish councils is important, and is important that we keep it at a level where you can work with us on a regular basis?
Absolutely, I think I made that. It's absolutely essential. It's, you know, we all represent the same people. You need to be talking to local councils to make sure that we work together, as I said, for the best that we can find in this rather new landscape.
Councillor Wally Hoggins, do you have a question?
Thank you. Although you did allude to it during your speech, is there anything in particular that you would like to see to ensure that local democracy is preserved and enhanced within the district, please?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I know that a lot of the smaller councils are really very concerned. They're really concerned that the apparent extra responsibility and obligations on what is technically volunteer councillors, they're already finding it difficult to have a full council. If they're going to be, the onus is going to be on them for much more work, servicing, etc. A lot of them are scared, and I think that's important that we work together to make sure that, to allay their fears and to tell them that there is support somewhere down the line.
Thank you. May I ask Councillor Passingham if he has a question?
Thank you. Do you see any benefits in what you've heard so far about unitary authorities and any particular combinations of unitary authorities for parish councils?
I have got colleagues who are clerks in a unitary, and some of them say, yes, there are advantages. You obviously, with the more responsibility, means that you also have more freedom in a way. But Warwickshire, and especially Stratford, is very rural, and that is the biggest problem, because a lot of the clerks that I know come from big areas, you know, a bit like Salisbury and things like that, so it makes them easier for them. But we've got lots of little villages, and I don't know. As I said, it's a fait accompli. We're going to have to do it, so the best we can do is work together to ensure that we can. We haven't got much choice, have we?
Thank you very much. This ends this part of our meeting. Thank you very much to our visitors for giving their views and actually answering questions. Please stay for the debate. I'm sure you've come actually hoping to for a good and lively debate now. So we move on to item 6, notion of motion, devolution and local government reorganisation. This motion, once proposed and seconded, will be debated. I invite the monitoring officer to advise on the rules of debate.
Thank you, Chair. The normal rules of debate now apply. So the Chair's allowing the normal 5 minutes, but will mirror what happens at budget debate practice, which means that she'll then allow leaders or a nominated member of the group, so group leaders or a nominated member of the group, an opportunity to speak more than once towards the end of the debate.
Councillor.
Yeah, just a quick point of order, Chair.
Can you stand, please?
Yes, quick point of order, Chair. I think it's very disingenuous to two independents here that we are not allowed to ask more than one just because we don't choose to pay to become a member of a political party. And I think it's actually very wrong. It's assumed group leaders only. That.
Do you want to say what you like?
Thank you, Chair. The Chair does have a discretion, so I'll hand to the Chair.
Thank you. This issue has been discussed, and I have agreed to allow the two independents to have one extra bite at the cherry during at the end of the debate. I would now actually ask for a proposer for this motion. Councillor Susan Junid proposes. May I ask for a seconder?
I second it, but I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I'm now informed that there has been an amendment proposed. I am now calling for an adjournment of 10 minutes before we actually come back to debate the situation. proposer for the amendment, please? Okay. May I have a seconder for the amendment, please? Thank you. Please may I ask Councillor Wally Hoggins to begin this debate.
It is clear that the settled will of the Labour government is unitary authorities across England. The Council requests that the Leader of the Council engages with all political groups and independents across the Council and engages with Warwickshire County Council and neighbouring councils to find the best solution for all the residents of the Stratford-on-Avon district. And the reason that we want to do this is because much of the original proposal that you've got before your motion was actually covered in a letter from the Minister Mahan. In it, he said a proposal should ask to achieve for the whole of the area concerning the establishment of a single tier of local government. Unitary local government must be the right size to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand with financial shocks. And also that unitary structures must prioritise the delivery of high quality and sustainable public services to citizens. Proposals should show how councils in the area have sought to work together in coming to a view that meets local needs and is informed by local views. New unitary structures must support devolution arrangements, and new unitary structures should enable stronger community engagement and deliver genuine opportunity for neighbourhood empowerment. And that is why we make the amendment before you today, councillors. Thank you.
The seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Not at this moment, but I reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Any speakers from the Councillor Coucher?
Chair, we spent a long time putting together, I think, a very coherent notice of motion in relation to this particularly very important topic. And also we were very cognizant, I think, of how our colleagues in Warwick also had debated something very similar indeed. Our feeling is that, frankly, the Conservative amendment doesn't add an awful lot to what already is in our notice of motion. What we would do, I think, to make it absolutely explicit in our notice of motion that we want to have the involvement of all councillors and all political groups going forward. And so, therefore, we would prefer to amend the third paragraph of our notice of motion to say that the council will ensure that all councillors are involved in endorsing the work with councils, and then as it is printed on the page, to make sure it's very clear that everybody is involved in this. I think we have a united view that we have to engage with the County Council, with our other districts in Warwickshire, and also with our town and parish council partners as well, within the district as well, in terms of finding the very best solution we possibly can. And indeed, our notice of motion makes it very clear in paragraphs, on numbers 1 to 5, of key matters which we need to make sure are resolved to the best interests of our people in this area. So, as things stand at the moment, we believe that we should reject the amendment as put forward today, but we are prepared to amend our motion to bring on board the sentiment of the amendment and ensure that that is encapsulated in the substantive motion. Thank you.
Councillor Wally Hoggins, are you happy to accept that?
In the spirit of getting this over the line, and because the time frame is there, then yes, we are. But we just wanted to make sure that it ensuring that all councillors is that, you know, I know that I've spoken to the Chief Executive today, and I believe matters are in hand for how this is going to be managed moving forward. So that is a conversation in addition to this. But let me be very clear about this. That the needs of the residents that have voted us here, the needs of the residents of Stratford-on-Avon district, transcend all political matters, and we need to really remember that. And there was no intention here to do any political point scoring. It was merely to emphasise the fact that we absolutely must get the best solution for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So we now have a friendly amendment going forward. May I call upon the proposer of the motion now to start the debate?
Sorry, can I thank you for this? I have tried to make sure that we are kept together across here. He did email the leader of the Conservatives and other, and left phone messages trying to see if we could get a good quality notice of motion, and invited her to respond and change this from about the 24th of January onwards. Anyway, we are where we are, but the local government, the English devolution white paper, actually is something that seems to have been going on for a long, long time. I've been a councillor here for about 30 odd years, and this is the third time this has come round. I think it was John Prescott was the original proposer of unitary authorities, and quite a few went down that route at that time. And then Michael Heseltine produced a paper in 2012, which had within it the proposals that are almost virtually identical to the English devolution. What is worrying to me in the white paper are some of the language in there that it expects not only that it should be done as quickly as possible, but that legislation will be introduced if people do not get on with it. The government is expecting from this that there will be savings. But my experience, and I have rung round, I've taken the opportunity to ring round and speak to an awful lot of local government that is going through this proposal. I've spoken to Cumbria, West Cumbria, Somerset. I've spoken to about 10 different unitaries that have either been through or are going through this proposal. And without exception, they are all saying bigger is not guaranteed to be cheaper, more efficient or more effective. It's only guaranteed to be bigger, more anonymous and out of touch with communities. And that actually is a quotation from Professor Copus, a professor of local government, who recently gave evidence to the select committee that is looking at this in Parliament. And one of the things that has come to me, one of the things that I've got from the the evidence that was being given in Parliament, is the wording from Professor Copus and from others that there is no reason in theory why devolution should be predicated on a reorganisation at all. Actually, devolution is something that might be welcomed, because getting powers from Westminster, if it's genuine powers from Westminster, through to a regional government or through to local government with more money and more freedom to do things, is something that I think most people would welcome. But it doesn't necessarily mean that to get the best that there should be unitarisation. But we have got what we've got in front of us. What we need and we need to get this through to government, is that what it needs are the right powers to local government coming down to the right level. What is important to me is that local government should stay close to the people it's representing and serving. That we should be consulting and should be working in partnership with all those people that we represent. It is an ironic fact that fewer councils and fewer councillors across the country actually makes it easier for control from the centre. And that is not what we're after. We are after making sure that our residents get the best solution and the best, they get the best powers going forward. Now, the notice of motion, as it stands, the purpose of it is to enable officers to continue to engage, and bearing in mind we've already started this engagement across the Warwickshire, but to properly, legitimately engage with all political groups, with neighbouring councils, with the county council, and to find the best solution for the residents. That is what the notice of motion was all about. What a lot of people don't recognise, and I think it seems
30
to be...
seconds, Councillor.
Sometimes seems to be that civil servants don't recognise, is that councils are not just service delivery bodies. They help shape local communities, they're an essential part of a healthy local democracy, and it works best if there's a local community identity, and that's what we must work to.
Thank you. Exactly 5 minutes. Brilliant. Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Any more speakers? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't intend to speak, but I did want to acknowledge the generosity of Councillor Coucher in widening the terms of the motion to include independence. I'll look forward to receiving lots of papers, and presumably I'll try and be as quick as possible in sending my replies. If I can speak on behalf of Councillor Bromwich, I'm sure he'll do exactly the same. Thank you.
Councillor Adam.
Thank you very much. I was listened to the speakers that we have that we'd invited here today intently. I was particularly welcomed the comments of Ms. Alalo with regards to town and parish councils. As a parish councillor myself and one of the parish champions, along with my colleague Councillor Keithley, I bear heavily in mind the impact that this reorganisation will have on our parish and town councils, who will certainly bear the brunt of this. I always maintain the concern that any reorganisation of local government will result in increased responsibility without increased resource. That's absolutely my fear this time, and I think it's incumbent upon us as the local council, as close to the parish and towns as we are, to maintain that is mitigated wherever possible. I'm sure there's consensus on that. That leads me to worry the larger issue of a democratic deficit that may come from reorganisation. I think we have to maintain that local councils should be local to the people they represent. The reorganisation that we are seeing and the potential reduction in councillors for the areas that we are looking at has real concern in terms of how accountable our local representatives will be and how able they will be to enact the will of the people they represent. I think we have to be incredibly conscious of that. That is why I completely back the approach of a north-south unitary approach for Warwickshire. It's something that maintains both geographic consensus of the area, and it also enables us to act with consciousness to our communities as proactively as possible, as we have been doing regardless of political colour. I feel we work best when we work together, and that includes working across different councils, particularly the district and boroughs. I'm very glad to see members of Warwick District Council here today, with whom we hope to work proactively into the future. I was not impressed by the approach that has been taken by the leader of the county council. I think it's fair to say that the approach did not work towards the sense of unity and collaborative working that was incumbent within the white paper's requirements. We have not seen the proactive working that is absolutely required to have a positive outcome that we are all looking for. And that goes from the sense of preparedness, the speed of which we have to act, the staff security of our own district and borough councils, which will be part of the new unitaries going forwards, and the way in which we as local representatives act for our residents across the piece. Ultimately, it's our local area that we are looking to shape, and we have to act in the best interest of our residents to do so. And that will be part of a larger strategic authority, but within that I really believe that South Warwickshire has a future that we can be a proud part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you. I've been speaking to residents on the doorstep quite often the last few weeks, and I just felt obliged to report back on what people are saying to me. Actually, the issue of devolution has been raised on many occasions in the last few weeks. Residents are concerned that the proposal for a single unitary authority, such as was submitted to the Minister by the county leader, quote, would provide one large authority that is far too remote from the electorate. And I'd urge this council to reflect on those comments now that we have an opportunity to investigate other options. However, their comments were not entirely against devolution per se, as they appreciated that there are many services that are split between county and district councils that would benefit from being combined and providing a single point of contact for our residents. I mean, just speaking for Stratford District, we have a county managing on-street parking, district managing the car parks, and so we've got two different enforcement teams operating the districts. Bin collections. All the district councils in the county collect the waste and send it to the county council. The county disposes of it for us. However, in this case, there's a wide discrepancy between the service levels of collection authorities. For instance, the Stratford District's recycling rate is 63.8% for the last quarter. Warwick Districts, which has a shared contract with Stratford District, also has a very high recycling rate. However, this is not the same for some of the other district and borough councils in the county area. I know this is a quick example, but it demonstrates the concern of many residents. It's all right that government ministers are citing that the cost of devolution will cost around 500 million, but realise a savings of over 2 billion. However, if the service standards provided throughout a large unitary end up as a postcode lottery for residents, how are they expected to feel that they have benefited from unitarisation? So, I would like to know how a single unitary authority set on boundaries of the current Warwickshire County Council will provide consistent high services levels to the residents throughout the whole area of this unitary. Residents have already expressed this as an issue to me, as they perceive that Warwickshire County Council are perceived to always put the priorities of Stratford District residents last. The message that I've got on the doorstep is for a solution that prioritises a southern unitary, and we need to start gathering evidence to provide the very best solution for our residents in the district. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. We're debating one of the most significant changes to local government in Warwickshire in more than half a century, and it's really great that we got the opportunity to give this the time deserved to properly discuss this, and I'd like to thank all the speakers that have come to speak. Warwickshire is a diverse county with vastly different needs. The needs and priorities of communities such as Shipston-on-Stour on the edge of the Cotswolds are worlds apart from urban Nuneaton in the north. Despite this, the County Council continues to push for a single Warwickshire-wide super-unitary, a model that centralises power, erodes local representation and forces together communities with no shared identity. Worse still, this proposal has been advanced under the guise of cancelling elections despite the objection of 4 of the 5 districts and boroughs, where Liberal Democrat, Conservative, Labour and Green leaders alike have spoken out against it. When leaders from all parties stand in opposition, it should be clear that this is not the right path forward, and it is disappointing the County Council did not appropriately take on board the views of the districts and boroughs to suspend our elections. I'm thankful for the government has taken the decision not to suspend elections for the County Council this May, and residents will finally have their say at the ballot box on devolution and the shape of local government in Stratford-on-Avon for decades to come. If the government were truly committed to devolution, it would empower communities, not impose a one-size-fits-all solution from above. Instead, we've been handed an arbitrary threshold. Any new unitary council must serve a minimum population of 500,000. This is not local government, it's regional government by a different name. The government claims that this model leads to more efficient councils, yet many Labour-run councils in London and metropolitan boroughs in the Midlands of the North are well below this threshold, and there have been no suggestions that they would be subject to reorganisation. So why is one rule applied to them and yet another to rural shire counties like ours? I hope the government looks seriously at this threshold and make provision for more sensibly sized authorities, and I really hope the County Council will reconsider their misguided view that a Warwickshire-wide super-unitary is the best way forward. I firmly believe that South Warwickshire Unitary Council is the best way to safeguard our local decision making and ensure that our distinct communities are properly represented. Further, I believe this is a solution that best delivers the effective and efficient high standard services that our residents rightly expect. We already have a strong foundation of cooperation with our colleagues in Warwick, and we should build on this partnership to achieve the best possible outcome from this reorganisation. As both a councillor and a Liberal Democrat campaigner, I personally take great fulfilment in canvassing and door knocking in my community and across the district. And when this has been raised as an issue to residents, the feedback on local government reorganisation has been really clear that local government should remain local and not be subsumed by any Warwickshire-wide unitary. If the government was serious about devolution, it would explore real democratic structures rather than pushing through an inconsistent patchwork of mayors and strategic authorities. However, we must work with what's in front of us. The government has indicated that proposals with meaningful cross-party support will carry more weight in final decisions. That's why I urge members from all parties and all authorities that we should stand together on this and that local government should remain local. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you, Chair. The leader opened and presented this motion with the words of the general effect that she wished that this motion would be debated in the interests of cross-party unity for the benefits of all our residents. Yet on paragraph 2 of the motion, we get open criticism.
Excuse me, Councillor, can you actually speak more directly? You're so tall.
Unfortunately, I'm not short enough. It is. Is that better? Okay. So, as I was saying, a good introduction from the leader, which we all agree with, I'm sure. We're here to serve our residents, and that's the whole purpose of this council. Yet and to do that in a cross-party manner. Yet we, in paragraph 2 of the motion, we criticise the Warwickshire County Council for things that really are not relevant anymore because Westminster has overtaken it, dates have overtaken the seat. So the issue of council elections being cancelled is rather an irrelevance to this argument in total. The issue of South Warwickshire as a viable entity in its own right is somewhat mystifying. For a start, it would fail on population numbers to meet any of the criteria the government have presented, and it is up to the government to present it. We can argue till we're blue in the face on either side, but it will make no difference whatsoever, and I think realistically we all know that. So I reject that part of the argument. Also, the viability, the financial viability of simply South Warwickshire is just not a sensible option. The Mayor of the West Midlands has already stated he will not countenance any boundary changes. So talking about including Coventry, as one of the earlier visiting speakers said, guest speakers said, again, is not a relevant part of this discussion or debate. So I'm happy to go forward with a motion that states that we work together with our neighbouring councils to do the best for all residents, but particularly make sure that we have the best position for Stratford-on-Avon district residents. Let's leave the politics out of it, please. They're not coming from this side, and I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crum.
I think I'm going to suffer from the same problems Councillor Littlewood. Yeah, there's a couple of things. Yeah, start off with, there's lots of things I can agree with Councillor Junid and I was going to say Councillor Pertogether, who is an MP Pertogether, whichever one's appropriate, so Manuela. Firstly, the point about timescale being very tight. 13 working days, I believe, or 16 working days. Was it 13, David? 13? Unlucky for some. And it's rushed. It's not consultation, it's being imposed. And I went through the consultation on fire and rescue with my county hat, going through all parts of the county for 3 months, seemed like 3 years. And I felt we did meaningful consultation. This isn't consultation, it's been imposed, and imposed in haste. That's not good for local democracy, that's not good for governance. And the other thing as well, lack of funding. There we are, we've got to do our day job, and we still got to respond within 20 odd days, less than 20 odd days, to get meaningful response that the government can look at. Will they look at it in detail with the amount of time and effort we put into it? I don't think they will. So really, yeah, well, believe it or not, I'm agreeing with both Lib Dem MP and Lib Dem leader of the council on certain items of this. One thing though, during the debate, it's become clear. This is not devolution. We're talking about local government review. Devolution comes separately. So a bit like when we spoke about the Ellen Badger on Friday over in scrutiny, where we're talking about the consultation, we sort of meandered around. We've got to stick what we've got in front of us, which is the local government review. And I certainly think that I agree. Again, I was agreeing with Councillor Grocott on quite a few things about one point of contact for car parks, refuse, grass cutting, antisocial behaviour. But then the but comes. She was talking about consistency in terms of recycling rates, etc. And then it got me talking about consistency. Yeah, obviously, this council is spending £750,000 on converting its fleet to run on HVO fuel, which is good, from a climate point of view. But guess where doesn't get the benefit from it? 15% of the constituents in the east of the district where I live, sunny Southam. So the only consistency we've got there is we're being inconsistent. And the only couple of other things I would add on to it, we spoke this morning, Councillor Curtis at Cabinet, we spoke about the Rural Services Grant that's no longer be here for a rural council. And it seems to be that's the path, the way the government is growing. So we do need to be strong, we do need to be together. So therefore we can have a stronger voice within government, because they will look at the rural shires and say, well, they're nice, they've got some lovely green areas, we can put some houses there, and they don't really need money. They haven't got the deprivation some of the parts got, but we have got the deprivation, but we haven't got the voice. So I do think that voice needs to be stronger. I disagree with Councillor Adam. He mentions it was like a takeover by the county. But one, it's not a takeover by the county. It's going to be a new authority, and all 6 authorities, districts, boroughs in the county will be abolished, and it will be a new council. And it was, again, quite interesting that Rugby Borough Council actually sided with the county council. So there are some divisions between the districts and boroughs. And the only other thing to finish is the size. In the local government review, it is saying it's 500,000 minimum unless there are any exceptional circumstances. And at the moment, I can't see there are any exceptional circumstances. If they come out as part of this collaboration and consultation, show me them and I will be an avid supporter. I would be the advocate. But at the moment, I can't see them. And also, I do believe that whatever authority we have, there will have to be some form of localism in terms like the adult social care committees in different parts of the county. But I know that we've got to do the right thing. I'm very disappointed that it's going to be imposed. And the other bit, I agree with Councillor Junid, it seems like it's going to be control from the... Sorry? How long?
15 seconds.
15 seconds. No. As somebody once said, I've started, so I'll finish. Yes, it will be controlled from the centre, and I think we do need to be a bigger authority so we can challenge back, because Warwickshire has unique geography, has a unique landscape, unique tourism, unique history. So I think we do need to maintain...
Please, can you wind it up now? Thank you.
So I will be supporting part of the motion, but I won't be supporting all of it. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm, as you know, always blessedly brief. I was moved by Councillor Adam and his comments, and I'd like to endorse them. And I'd like to just echo that kind of in numbers, and that is just a very brief count up. We've got more than 250 councillors covering the whole of Warwickshire currently, and you know, when I hear what Councillor Adams says, and I reflect that in numbers, it does mean that it would, you know, if we end up with a lot less councillors, we end up with a lot less ability to help residents and to help parish councils, and it is warming to hear from this council how focused we are on that, you know, and we need to retain that. And so ultimately, I think when we come out the back end of this process, one of the measures I'm going to use about whether we've been successful is how many residents per councillor we have. Because if we end up with a huge number of residents per councillor, we can't do the job, but also we just get more grey-haired people like me doing the job, and less of the youth that I see opposite me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Comments have gone down well. Councillor Wally Hoggins.
Just calming down after that last statement, actually. Thank you. It's a simple statement, really, and it's almost a question, but can I ask councillors to be very careful about referring to the South Warwickshire Unitary, because by repeatedly doing so, which has happened 3 or 4 councillors have done that, as indeed has the MP, that the South Warwickshire Unitary implies that decisions have already been made behind closed doors, and I thought that we were supposed to be looking at this with an open mind. So perhaps, instead of referring to it as South Warwickshire Unitary, we should in fact be referring to it, and an apostrophe is quite important in all of this, I believe, Stratford District's Unitary. Perhaps we could refer to it as that, rather than the South Warwickshire Unitary, because otherwise it's giving the message that deals have already been done behind closed doors, and I know that that isn't the case, and we need to move forward with an open mind, and continually referring to it as South Warwickshire Unitary implies that options are very limited indeed. And let me tell you, in the financial situation that this council is in, our options are not limited. The only thing that's going to limit us and our residents is having a closed mind and closing down wide options that are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, what can we really say about this, apart from it's not really devolution, it's democratic disenfranchising, if we're realistic, by trying to impose what residents don't want. I think we can all agree on that part there. We've heard mentions of a South Warwickshire Unitary, a Warwickshire Unitary. I fear central government has already made its mind up, despite what we will ever say. So it's important we approach what lays in the future, and very quick future, with very open minds, and try and get the best for our residents. We all know, as Councillor Junid alluded to, that when you tend to have these bigger authorities, despite Whitehall saying bigger is better, evidence does suggest otherwise. And I think we should be making that as part of our representations. It disturbs me as well that central government and Whitehall are imposing this without public consultation. So let councillors know, when this first came on the table, I put a social media posting out. 2 days later, I was at one of our fine drinking establishments in Cllr. Not just older people expressing concerns over this, young people, 18, 19, 20 years old. They don't want to be disenfranchised with big authorities. They like the idea they have their local councillor, as we do at the moment, who is approachable, hopefully, that on the thing. And they like the idea that actually we represent our communities. They fear, as I'm sure, having listened to many of the conversations here today, and the speakers and that will be taken away from them. Then when I look into this devolution paper even further, and they want to give things like mayor's powers for planning. As Councillor Crump will know, we have been sort of told unofficially that these mayors can, well, have powers to move our local plan housing numbers around their strategic authority. We need to make sure things like that don't happen if we're going to be going to unitary authority and being aligned with strategic mayors, because that could be devastating for our communities, because we all know that these mayors will be pretty much city-based. They will not have the interests of rural community at heart. They'll be looking at their big towns, their big cities. And if they see an easy win, well, we need to put some houses that way, that's in their local plan, and if we're allowed to shift numbers around within a strategic authority, that could be very dangerous for us. And it could mean we could have the best South Warwickshire local plan ever, but the West Midlands Combined Authority Mayor, for example, could say, well, actually, we're going to move them numbers round from somewhere else and add to your numbers. We have really got to make strong cases throughout the next few weeks to make sure these sort of things are addressed, because if we don't, and central government imposes, we could end up with something very, very bad. It's not going to be a great situation that we're facing, because Whitehall has made sure of that. And it's very disappointing the Minister couldn't be here to hear our representations, because quite frankly, I don't think they actually want to hear that. But I think if we stand together, we work for what's best, we have to be realistic. We may not get what we really want, but we've got to make the best of a bad deal, I'm sorry to say.
Thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of the external speakers, including the member of the public, and I'm heartened to hear the contributions of other members across the chamber. This is an important issue that we're discussing. The last time that local government was reorganised was 1974, so this is more than a generational change that is before us, and a number of members have already outlined that the approach that's been taken by the Labour government is perhaps less than consensual, trying to be diplomatic about it. Top-down, imposition are all phrases that I think run through all of our minds. And I think there is no doubt, as Councillor Wally Hoggins said, that it's the settled will of the Labour government to move to a unitary system. The challenge before us, and the challenge I throw out to the Leader of the County Council, is regardless of our individual preferences around the shape of a unitary that serves the residents of Stratford-upon-Avon district, whether that be a whole Warwickshire unitary, some division of Warwickshire, some other different solution. The exam question for us in this room, and the challenge for all of the decision makers, and I do include the County Council leader there, because the County Council is the first point of conduit for the government, is how do we make this relevant, and how do we make this work for Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones, in whatever street, in Bedford or in Ulster or Shipston or Southam or Napton on the Hill, wherever it is. And the way we do that is to ensure that we embed clear, unambiguous structures that preserve the link between whatever centralised unitary is formed. And let's not delude ourselves that people will think that a South Warwickshire unitary is any less remote. If you're on the periphery of Warwick district, or if you're on the edge of Stratford district, on the border of Worcestershire, where Councillor Holmes in Ulster and I in Bedford and Councillor Fleming are, Stratford or Warwick can itself seem remote. So how do we ensure that decision making, how do we ensure that enough councillors are in the new authority to represent members, residents effectively, and how do we ensure, for example, that planning decisions, leaving aside the strategic decisions that might fall to some form of mayor down the line, how do we ensure? So, for example, We don't just have one planning committee for whatever shape of new authority. There are local decisions. We ensure that there are structures built for example, for planning, for things like the economic development, are close enough to our residents. And if we embed those structures, then we can make whatever form of unitary that comes out work. Because the key is to ensure that the decisions that affect our residents are made by people who understand the implications. And in that way, you can get the benefits of the upside. So, for example, having a single waste collection and waste disposal authority. Things like a unified approach to adult and child social care and the link with NHS provision. So, whilst each of us will have different views about the best solution, we should not lose sight of the fact that our key role is to ensure that we make sure that that link between Mr. Smith and Mrs. Jones and the decision making at the centre, whatever that looks like, is not broken. And I think that I can't look around this room and think that anybody can disagree with that.
30 seconds,
Local means
Councillor.
local, and I think local means local for every single one of us in this room, and that's what we've got to aim for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair. There are so many different levels to this that it's difficult to know on which one do we start with. Do we start with, well, what's going to happen with special educational needs care? Where is that going to go? Because that is going to be one of the main questions asked from every parent out there who has a child with special educational needs. Where does adult care and social care come in? Because again, that's going to be one of the first questions we're asked. We can talk about boundaries, we can talk about bin collections, there's so much we can talk about, but we need to go to the heart of what is in for our residents. And that is going to be the care for their loved ones. By bringing... We need to make sure that the localism stays. We could end up with a councillor having huge mega wards to deal with, making a role of a councillor as a full-time job rather than somebody dedicating themselves to helping their community. And by doing that, you could then end up with someone who's more interested in the full-time job than one person in a ward who has lost their hot water because the housing association hasn't fixed their boiler. And you lose that face-to-face benefit for the people. We also need to make sure that we don't end up overwhelming our town and parish councils. A lot of our town and parish councils are the face, they are the grassroots. I think that's always been said. Yet a lot of them work out of town halls who just don't have office space available to start employing different members of staff for different roles that could end up being put onto local town and parish councils. I know that is a big concern. But we've also got to think about reputationally what our residents think. Now, currently, they can look and they can complain about certain things, but they like quite a lot of what is already being done. I hear that on the doorstep. I can hear that every time I walk down my local road in my ward. But reputationally, I know there is concern because parents have already said it to me that the county council take over more control. They don't have a great reputation for helping parents with special educational needs. And that is something that has to be addressed straight away with this. I think there will be some positives that we'll be able to find from it, but currently my main issue here is residents, the residents who are used to seeing their local councillor in their local area, you know, my ward of Bishopton, I live there, I work there, my kids have gone to the local nursery, the local primary schools. I know every bit of it. When someone says to me, oh, do you know Dead Man Alley is flooded again? I know exactly where that is because I used to be able to walk down it. And that is something that is vital to the residents. And it's something I know that we will be working very hard to make sure is held in what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. Unlike Councillor Littlewood, I'm small enough to be heard. Please don't stand up. We have to, yeah. I've heard a number of things that I wanted to just push back on over the last hour or so, couple of hours. Councillor Holmes and Councillor Adams both complained about the fact that the County Council didn't consult, and yet we heard from the leader, from Cllr Seccombe, that she did consult on the 19th of December, and we also heard from Councillor Davidson of Warwick District Council, that in actual fact there have been conversations. The other thing Councillor Davidson raised was that when he was challenged about the financial stability, if you like, of Warwick, raised doubts about Warwickshire's viability. And we've also heard in the past, at the last council meeting, Councillor George Coucher say similar things. Well, it's interesting to note that Warwickshire County Council have a good level of reserves. They have a set of unqualified accounts, and the pension fund is overfunded to the tune of 146%. That actually shows a well-run council, not the impression that has been given by one or two members today. In terms of things like operational stuff, well, yeah, I mean, Councillor Grocott said, how do we know that we're not going to have to dumb down rather than go? That goes for any authority. That's not just the county. That's for any authority. And the fact is, I don't want to lose the identity of Warwickshire. So if we start to get lumped in with others, that identity is weakened. I think Warwickshire is a great county, and we should run with it. The talk about a South Warwickshire unitary is a non-event because, as Councillor Crump has said and others have said, the minimum size is 500,000. South Warwickshire does not qualify on that score. So it's a non-event. So we have to work with what we have and be engaged in the process, not push against it. If we engage with it, we can control the process. We can shape the future, whatever that future is and in whatever form. I fail to understand why we keep talking about something that the white paper has specifically said can't happen, and that's a small unitary authority like South Warwickshire, unless special provisions or special reasons apply. So I'm slightly mystified by that. So my view, the other thing I will say on the which I missed on the financial thing, is that the county have set a 5-year medium-term financial strategy. If you look at all other county councils, you will be hard-pressed to find any that forecast 5 years. Under the Local Government Act, they forecast 1 year. 1 year only. County councils set out the plans for 5 years. That doesn't smack of not being a well-structured authority. That smacks actually of a well-run authority. So for me, I don't understand the criticism and don't recognise some of the criticism of the County Council. Finally, one of the other things that you have to remember is things such as adult social care, home to schools, SEND, children's care, which has come up. Now, all those funds, all that expenditure is controlled by the county. Can you imagine trying to
30
unravel
seconds,
that? Thank you. Right, can you imagine trying to unravel that? That would be a logistical nightmare for anyone. So my own feeling is we shape it as best we can, but the county council should not be taking any flack at all for going early. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Chair. I think currently, in the room at the moment, I'm probably one of the longest serving town, district and county councillors. I've done around 17 years at all three levels. So I think I'm pretty well versed with how issues are dealt with at all levels. And more importantly, I'm also aware of the competitiveness and the differences between the north of the county and the south of the county. So I'm going to keep this brief. I am in favour of helping people with local issues in the local area. And I see that a South Warwickshire local authority is the best way of dealing with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Chair. I would align myself with many of the comments that have been made by, with my colleagues across the floor, but there were just two teeny-weeny little points I wanted to raise. One is that this work will lead to a new council, not the enlargement of an existing council. The new council will be a new body, and I think all those involved should bear that in mind and remember that when they are discussing it. And I'm afraid in some levels I seem to see a slight blurring of the old and the new, but I think it's very important that we maintain that and at the front of our minds. And the second one was that conversations can be very much in the ear of the receiver, and that one person's conversation could actually transpire that it was many other people's monologue. And I think that too should be borne in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak? Councillor Passingham.
Well, yeah, we endorse most of what's been said here. We agree that this doesn't seem very much like devolution. Devolution should mean power going more locally and decision-making being more local, and this doesn't seem like that. I don't know, how are we going to ensure that any unitary decisions are made more locally? The representative from the parish council said there were great concerns there that they would have a lot more responsibility and no more money or resources to carry out what they need to do. So it does seem as if we've got a lot of challenges in making this work, but the sort of principles that we think would be best would be the smaller the better. In fact, being green, we think small is beautiful on the whole. So something like a South Warwickshire unitary would be preferable. Whether they'll, looking into the future, this will be possible, because the first tranche is just happening. We don't know how successful that's going to be. It could be chaotic across the country, and lots of things may never happen. So I think we've still got to hold out for a smaller unitary if we can. And as much localism as we can to ensure that really our residents are represented properly, and that there's the reduction in councillors isn't sort of drastic culling to 25% of what there is at the moment, because I think we all know it's hard work being a local councillor, and you can take up all your time in dealing with local issues. So if the wards and divisions are made 4 times bigger, it's going to be a lot harder for councillors. it's going to be more remote from our residents, and we've got to make sure there are benefits from the residents in all this, and it's very difficult to see any benefits for them at the moment.
Thank you. Do I have any more people from the floor who wish to say anything in this debate? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Parry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was very interested to hear Councillor Rolfe's views and her preference for a South Warwickshire unitary, particularly as I understand the county-wide Lib Dems are in favour. The leader of the county Lib Dem group and the deputy leader of the Lib Dem group are in favour of a county-wide unitary. That's my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, any more speakers? Okay, we're now coming to the wind-up session. Are you wishing to have your Councillor Bromwich? Okay.
Yes, so first of all, we've had a good debate, and I think, first of all, there's a lot of consensus amongst the room. I think there just has to be a realisation. I know across the floor there's fixation with South Warwickshire Unitary, but I think at the moment, with what we have on the table and what central government are saying, keep it at the back of your mind, maybe, but I think at the moment you have to work to something that we really don't want, as I mentioned earlier. And that is going to be a new unitary authority of some description. It's going to be of about 500,000 people. The key part now is for us to work out how do we get it to work best for the residents of Stratford District Council. This now is not about political point scoring. This is now about everybody pulling together for the good of every resident in this district. We can all sit there and we can come up with various alternatives. But the bottom line is we've got to have a firm proposal in short time, realistically, to national government. That involves us also, as has been mentioned, we've got to talk to our residents. They are not happy about this. They are worried that they're going to be disconnected more. We've got to do what we can now to ensure we get what's best for them. It is time to park the politics. It is time to turn around and say, we know what we have got to work to. Let us all come together now. Let us get what is best for Warwickshire, whether it's working with us collective as councillors, our neighbouring district and borough councils, and the Warwickshire County Council. We've got to all pull together, because if central government imposes something on us, it will be a lot worse than what we as a collective can actually do for ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor. Now coming to the winding up of the debate, can I call on Councillor Coucher as seconder of this motion to have his say?
Thank you very much. I think it's been very good that we've had this debate today, and I thank all colleagues who have given up time at work and other activities to be here today. Can I just deal with one or two matters which have been raised? Some comments about where the Liberal Democrats stand. We stand very united with our colleagues in Warwick in looking for a South Warwickshire entity. I have to say that leadership in rugby takes a very different view, but that is, I think, the case in all parties in many respects and where we are. As I said earlier this afternoon, we have put forward here a notice of motion which I think covers many of the points that we have. We know that we've got to address what the government are looking for. We know that there are many disadvantages about local government reorganisation and to some degree devolution. It's been mentioned here, obviously the demographic deficit, the issues in relation to finances which may not work terribly well. But we have to find a solution, and that is one of the reasons why I think we've put forward this motion today, to make sure we've got a good framework going forward in relation to that. We also were, when this was drafted, very concerned about the fact that the County Council had gone off and gone forward with just one option. Very different from other counties surrounding us, which have put forward preferred options, but other options as well. We believe Warwickshire has a number of options, and two in particular that we need to really test and get the evidence for in terms of what we're doing. Time is short, but we have to work hard to get that. That is obviously to look at a unified Warwickshire, which obviously the Conservatives are very much in favour of, and also therefore to look also at potentially two unitaries. We believe there are exceptional circumstances in this county, which why we should have a unitary for less than 500. Just look at the shape of Warwickshire. The connectivity between Polesworth and Long Compton is nil. Polesworth may well look towards the north, and indeed, if we were going to become part of a strategic authority, would we really want to be a strategic authority with Staffordshire or with Leicestershire, where there is very little connectivity with Stratford and with South Warwickshire? So in looking at our unitary structure, we have also got to look at what strategic authority would be part of. And frankly, the West Midlands Combined Authority is not an attractive proposition for us either. Labour government, Labour, West Midlands Combined Authority, do you think Warwickshire is ever going to get anything very much out of that particular arrangement? We need to work closely, I think, with other authorities that have much more in common with us going forward. I'm grateful to the Conservatives for their amendment, because we've managed to incorporate that, I think, in the substantive motion, and I accept Councillor Wally Hoggins agreeing to that, because I think that's extremely helpful and very consensual in our ability to go forward. We have got to work quickly. We've got to ensure that all councillors, including Councillor Harvey and his financial expertise, which I'm sure will be extremely important in terms of looking at things, that we actually include all of that in terms of coming up with our solution here. As things stand at the moment, it looks like the best solution is some form of South Warwickshire, and I think there is a commonality there amongst political parties in both Warwick districts and Stratford to look at that going forward. So I would commend the motion as amended, and hopefully that we can get all party and all councillor support for that going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, the leader. Yeah.
I think there's a point of order.
Point of order.
Yes, Councillor Coucher, I'm not being pedantic here, but repeatedly you've referred to a South Warwickshire solution here, and that is not what we're agreeing to here. It's not part of the notice of motion. We're signing a notice of motion here to look at all avenues, to explore all avenues, and yet what you've repeatedly done throughout today is to talk about a South Warwickshire solution, that you've already spoken to colleagues at County Council and that you feel that this is the best solution. So either we're going to have an open and honest discussion about it and look at all avenues, or in fact all avenues have already been closed and we are looking at a South Warwickshire plan, in which case your notice of motion should have made referral to we are looking at a South Warwickshire solution to this. But I am unhappy that right at the very end here, your summing up has basically announced that we are looking at a South Warwickshire solution, not the solution for Stratford district. And this is really important. Thank you.
Do you want to say? May I say that's a fair comment, and the motion itself does not put forward a single solution. It's looking at a general moving forward together of all parties. May I ask the monitoring officer to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm what the Chair has said, it's recognised this is a cross-party motion to look at solutions. No decision's been made at all.
But I'm sorry, from what the deputy leader of this council has said, the solution has already been found because of the constant referral to South Warwickshire. I did say that earlier on in the debate today, and it is quite alarming that that avenue has
May
been
I say,
repeatedly
Councillor,
said.
you've made your point, and I
Thank
think
you.
the Chair has accepted that you've made a valid point. Thank you. May I call upon the leader who proposed this motion for a final brief summing up.
The notice of motion, as outlined, it was deliberately outlined to try to carry as many people with us as possible in order to be able to work together collaboratively across this council for a solution. Just a few facts that have come out in this debate. We've had one meeting with Warwickshire County Council. The district councils, the 4 district councils, have actually had about 5 meetings, so there's been quite a lot of meetings between district councils. I've also attended 3 ministerial webinars. I've also attended Local Government Association webinars and a district council network webinars. In the ministerial webinars, it was made very, very clear indeed that there was flexibility on size was on offer. They made it clear that unitary proposals below the 500k were possible. This was the ministers and the civil servants said that. And that we would also be able to use the projected figures from the South Warwickshire Local Plan going forward in order to be built into any projected figures. The District Council Network did a freedom of information on evidence for the 500k figure, and there was no independent evidence supporting this figure. It is important to be able to actually read the English devolution white paper, because in that it says that the strategic authority, and this is why we've got to be able to build and make sure that we have the right strategic authority going forward. The strategic authority will take on roads, rail, bus franchising, skills and employment, housing and strategic planning, economic development and regeneration, visitor economy, health, well-being and public services reform. Most of those are powers that currently reside at the county council level. So most of those will actually go to the strategic authority. There is also a commission on social care that is about to start, and it will take place over the next 2 to 3 years. Hopefully get going earlier, because we've already had some information on that was reported in the Dilnut report, for example. Now, if we don't know what the outcome of what that will be, but that could lead to a considerably different position as well, because if the outcome is that social care goes to the health service, then again there won't be actually very much for the county council to do. So it is the strategic authority that we're going to actually have to work with, given the English devolution white paper, and it is worth reading completely. It is also worth looking at what the representations have been made to the selection committee in Parliament. Some very powerful positions have been made there, and it has again been clarified about the flexibility on the size in some of the responses. So we've also got to look at some of the actual experience of current unitary authorities that have been going through this in the last 18 months. And I have spoken to 10 or 11 of them. It is alarming that, for example, West Cumbria has already spent in 18 months £30 million just on bringing together 5 different sets of IT equipment, 5 different sets of parking team terms and conditions, 5 different sets of other groups, 30 million in 18 months. So we've got to bear that in mind. One of the things why we've got this notice of motion today and the debate today is to give legitimacy to be able to go forward so that we can look at all these issues and make sure that we are working on what kind of authority we want, but also on what strategic authority we want. That is something that the government will not accept any unitary proposal unless we've got in place a strategic authority proposal on who we will actually work with. We've got to do that, and that is absolutely critical. We've got to make sure that any new model for our region is locally led and widely supported. Any new arrangements must remain local and connected to local communities. We have to keep the local in local government. And it's absolutely vital that the process is collaborative. It doesn't become a damaging distraction, undermine
30
democracy,
seconds, Councillor.
or undermine critical public services. And that means that we've got to speak to as wide a range of people as possible and bring them forward with us. We must not have this kind of debate again. We now need to actually get on, put forward our proposals and work on exactly where we're going in the next few months and with a final solution by November.
Thank you, Councillor. We now go to the vote. I understand that we are going to have 3 votes on the first, second and third paragraph in the devolution and local government reorganisation notice of motion. Do you want me to read out the paragraph and then we take a vote on it?
The third paragraph as amended.
The third paragraph as amended. Are you happy with that, councillors? Do you want me to read out the motion, each paragraph? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, paragraph 1, on which we shall vote, that this council notes the publication of the English devolution white paper and recognises that local government devolution and reform could offer considerable opportunity if we agree to work collaboratively with those within our ceremonial and economic geographies to establish the right to deal for our local populations. Those in agreement with that, would you please raise your hand? That is carried. Thank you, councillors. The second paragraph reads that this council notes with regret the decision of the leader of the County Council, Warwickshire County Council, to request that Warwickshire County Council elections are delayed for a year, and endorses the joint letter from the leaders of this council, North Warwickshire Borough Council, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, and Stratford-on-Avon District Council in response. Oh, sorry, it's Warwick District Council. You're happy with that reading? You understand it? Would you raise your hand if you are in agreement with that? Thank you. Those who do not agree with that? Any abstentions? Thank you, councillors. And that's carried. So we now go on to the third paragraph, which is slightly longer, but I'll read it as quickly as I can. The council endorses working with all councillors and involved with councils. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I think there's been a little change in iteration there, but the comment is that the council endorses working with all councillors and political groups and working with all councils across Warwickshire to look at options for appropriate service delivery models, unitary status.
Are you happy with that? Yeah.
Sorry, I hadn't made the notes directly from what was being discussed earlier, but
Sorry, that council will ensure that, and then it goes on to that. Thank you. That all councillors involved, that will ensure that all councillors are involved, or Councillor Couch had it written down.
That council will ensure all councillors are involved with working with councils, county, district, borough, towns and parishes across Warwickshire to look at the options for appropriate service delivery models for unitary status. This must consider, and then there are 1 to 5 points. People happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you raise your hand if you approve of that?
check, that's carried.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, Councillor. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. That brings to an end the debate today. There is no urgent business. The next meeting of the council is scheduled to take place on Monday, the 24th of February 2025. There being no further business, I declare the council meeting to be closed.